Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Paul Webb, Head of Learning Strategy and Customer Education here at Joblogic. My role is about helping service businesses get the most out of their systems so they can focus on what really matters, running smooth operations, staying compliant, and delivering best practice service to their customers. Now, today's session is going to be a grounded, practical discussion around compliance, technology, and what good really looks like. We're here to share experiences, best practice, and to show you guys how teams are using digital tools to simplify their workflows, improve compliance, and, of course, free up some time. And I'm joined by two fantastic guests today. First up, my colleague Ben Skevington, who works closely with teams across the industry implementing digital certification tools and integrations. He'll share the technical side of how systems can remove friction and make compliance effortless. Welcome, Ben.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks for having me.
And we also have a highly regarded customer of ours in Jamie Parry, who runs an ever-growing electrical business called Assured Electrical Solutions, and who has been through the journey himself from paper-based processes to full digital workflows. He'll share what's worked, what's been challenging, and of course, how the change has helped his customers and his business grow. Jamie, welcome and thanks for joining us, bud. So, guys, let's get started a little bit. And what I'll do is I'm just going to set the scene with some of the challenges we see kind of every day when it comes to compliance, regulation, and obviously trying to keep up with this ever improving and increasing digital world. Now, I think if we're all honest, we know that there's still a lot of businesses out there that are at a place where a lot of their um, processes are part digital, part paper based. Jobs and assets will be in one place, then they'll have certificates over here that live in somewhere else. And that split, as you guys will probably know from both your roles, is where time and error kind of creep in. So I think what we're going to kind of focus on today, the three of us, is we'll look at kind of people, process, and technology together rather than kind of in isolation. So I think I'm going to start with Ben, if that's all right. Sorry, Jamie, if you just bear with us a second. And Ben, if I can start with you from your perspective, from your role, from the feedback and data that you have at your kind of fingertips, if you like, and what you see across the different teams, where do you notice the most time being lost in a business? Is it in the systems they use, the processes they follow, or how people are working currently?
I think it depends on where in the journey that company is at the moment. Sometimes all of those elements have an impact. You've got the processes need to be in place, and sometimes people try and run before they can walk. It's a nice
Yeah,
idea to try and sort of scale that up. You get the other thing as well is kind of the industries that we're looking at. They can sometimes be slow to adopt new technology, and so they're the industry that people are working in is the people need a little bit more hand holding, some of them, to get them up to speed, or maybe there's a little bit of nervousness around being prepared to sort of take that leap, if you see what I mean.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and what would you say then? I guess if you understand this, of course you do. I know you do, but for the people watching, that gives us a great kind of setup where my next question to you would be, what's what's the quickest win you can recommend to people that are half paper and half digital, not without cutting corners, anything like that? What's that kind of right? This is an instant sit back. We can win here if we just do X.
I think focusing on what you're delivering to the client can be really important. You want to make sure that your finalized output looks really professional, and there's lots of ways that you can ensure that whether it's a risk assessment or a installation certificate or compliance form that you need to hand over, you don't want to be handing, as soon as that becomes paperwork, everyone's seen those old school sheets where you got like 4 different versions that you keep one, you give one to the client and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
triplicates.
That it's exact. Yeah, that's the one. I always forget the word. But a lot of people are used to that sort of old system, and if you can moving away from that, you get a far more professional output. You've got the out. It's about legibility sometimes for the clients as well. If you're handing
Yeah.
handwritten notes to people, they look at it, a year down the line, and they're like, I don't actually remember what any of this meant. And so,
Yeah.
like, I think tidying up kind of your output is a really good starting point. Um, it depends on kind of the work you do as well, because some clients, some people in the industry, they'll do the. So I guess what I'm trying to say is some people will, for the same volume of work, same volume of employees, some people will issue 5 to 10 certificates a month, whereas others will be doing hundreds because of the type of work that they do. If it's small installations, whereas if you've got big commercial jobs on like hospital reports and stuff like that, that
Yeah.
obviously takes time. So I think it depends
Yeah.
on, they've got to be careful to focus on the right area for themselves.
I'm wondering now what Jamie's handwriting was like when he was using triplicate form paper and stuff like that. Was it decent, Jamie, or were you a bit sort of
Oh,
spiders crawled across it?
it's just like where'd you put it all, isn't it? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
problem with it. And we you're trying to collect information, and then the client might not be there. You can't then give them the information because it's all digital on email. I mean, I've had people that are selling their property, and we've done a certificate 3 years ago, and we can get that paperwork. It just looks really good, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's all digitally stored, and it never goes away. So
No.
we don't want to think, well, was that the wet copy we had when we went for breakfast that day or something like that? It's
The coffee stain on it.
yeah. I mean, it's just, I suppose, if you think about scale, everything I've done with my business has been thinking about scalability and a growth mindset. And if you think short term, it's okay. Or I had a chap work for me. Or I like a pad and paper.
Mm.
But it's never gonna be the way, long term, because then you've got to carry a file in the van, and it
Yeah.
I mean, especially now, I think we complete, if we got 10 vans, 20 jobs a week, I mean, it would be absolute. You'd have to get that paperwork back off the engineers, and it's just, it's instantly available this way.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like Ben said, isn't it, Jamie, that even if you take away the number of it, and like you gave a really good example then, if you go back 3 years, what Ben's point was, if it'd been written out on that sort of triplicate paper that that all used to get carried around, what conditions that going to be in, what's the handwriting like, and so on. So I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna pick you up about your growth in a minute if I can, because I think it's a really interesting. I know we kind of met last week, and you um for the first time really, and you kind of told me how it had gone, and I really want the viewers that are watching this to kind of understand where you've come from, because it's a brilliant story. If I can just finish with kind of one last question to Ben. Ben, if we kind of talk a bit on brand here, and I want to know kind of what your take on how connecting certificates and jobs into that single platform that Jamie spoke about, what kind of change does that impact for that kind of day-to-day office and the field teams in your view?
I think that one of the biggest improvements there is visibility. You've got that live visibility for not just the back office staff, but the management teams as well. They can see the progress of their engineers on a live system, and you you don't, if as soon as you've got disjointed systems, you have an issue where someone's got to pull up a job report from here, pull up the certificate that needs to go with it from a different system, and all of a sudden you're trying to piece together an email with 4 different PDFs from 5 different systems, and it just slows everything down. One of the
Couple of
things that
hours, couple of
exactly
hours, isn't it?
exactly, and I think what's really important is clients want the answers quickly. We live in a world where everyone expects the answer today, right now. And by having that all in one place, being able to issue it in one go, especially from like a platform that's a cloud-based platform as well, means that, you know, if someone like Jamie's out and about, for example, he can probably jump in from his mobile phone and just send it while he's
Yeah.
on the way to a different job, and it just cuts that efficiency, those delays massively, and your clients are satisfied, and ultimately that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah. Cool. No, thanks for that, Ben. I guess as I just sort of alluded to, I'd like to kind of understand now a little. I want the viewers to kind of understand a little bit more about Jamie's journey with it. Jamie, from what I remember about our conversation, and obviously you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to set you up a little bit and then let you go off and do
Brilliant.
your thing. But you've taken Assured Electrical Solutions from like a single van. You know, we spoke about those, you know, doing quotes in your vans, that sort of stuff, into this massive respected business that you've got today, nearly what I think you said 18 years or so ago, onwards. And what I loved about your story, that this wasn't just growth in size, but what stuck with me was your angle on reputation, and you telling me about that. I'm not going to spoil it for people listening, but you somewhat stuck with me that you've helped change the way, I think you said, that people look at electrical contractors in Cardiff, because now you offer this slick service. So I'd love you to share a little bit of that journey if you can, Bud, and just how you built the trust locally, you know, the standards you now clearly set, and what's made you stand out at a business that wants your customers want to stay with you, and allows you to have that, you know, sort of that brand and standard that we spoke about. So yeah, over to you,
Yeah,
Jamie, please.
and with the help of Joblogic, obviously, that we've used. Yeah, I mean, thanks for asking me as well, because it's if I can help, I always like to be part of something. And I think, I never blow my trumpet, but I always thought to myself, I'd rather be a trendsetter than a trend follower. And everything that I've done in my business has been um, like something. It's all right having a business model and a business plan, but what I've used with my systems and processes is my 20 years in the industry to understand the hacks and the shortcuts and the things you can use that you can use with your industry knowledge. For instance, when you're saying about paperwork, we have a before and after image that the client sees, and that's also
Yeah.
good for our database. So, I mean, you're talking about, I got a Renault car. I mean, they do images of the vehicle. So, I haven't nicked that from them, but um, I realised that,
Oh, you mean when they're servicing it, you mean? They
yeah,
do the
when they
video.
service it, yeah.
That's it.
So,
Yeah, yeah, I get them.
yeah, they're great. I mean, but I mean, but I realised from the beginning that if I was going to grow this business, that I'd have to have a growth mindset, and I'd have to think outside the box. And like, for instance, I got a business consultant that's helped me with some of the figures, but he doesn't understand the industry, and he doesn't understand the hacks and the shortcuts that you could use or take with digital digital presence. And what I liked about the systems and processes that Joblogic have helped me with, they're not an off the shelf thing. You can make this really bespoke to your business as well. So I grew it from, and not only that, like, we send a quote and it's so professional, like, it's coming from Joblogic system. It's got all 6 vans on there. So we went from one man in a van. I was managing everything in one van. And it's great. It's easy that way, isn't it? But then when
Yeah.
you try and do, we're up to 11 vans now operating from, I don't know if anyone knows this area, from Bath, Gloucestershire, right down to Swansea. And that's all been done with in mind, everything I do is for scale, because if you can't scale it, you haven't got a business, have you? So,
No,
like,
I get that. I get that. Jamie, could I
yeah,
just interrupt you a second, because it's really interesting you said that, because we do talks and customer events around growth, because that's what we focus on at JobLogic. We don't just sell a system. It's like, we want to help you grow. And you just said something that really kind of ticked a box for me. When I do talks on business growth, I always say to the people in the room, there's when you grow a business, you have two choices. Sorry, when you're running your business, you have two choices. You can either grow or you can go for profit. you can't do both equally. Would you agree with that? Because to me, it seems like you've gone firmly down. I want to scale and the profits. I'm not going to worry too much of that. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, because the bit that people miss is the equity in the company, and the that's the end goal, isn't it?
Yeah,
If you're going to just look at what you're going to make monthly right now, and you're not looking at the end game, then you're in the wrong game of trying to scale a business, because you're looking at the my equities at the end, five,
yeah,
six, seven. Because people always forget that when they scale and they spend money on growth, that they think that they're losing that money, but that's the equity, you know.
it's investment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can get cash in the bank so confused with the value of your company just because you can't go to the bank and there's lots of cash in the bank. Well, we all know cash in the bank goes backwards anyway. You'd rather, you know, you'd rather buy X amount of money in vehicles. I know that I've got a model that works,
Yeah,
so I can just use that cash to. So yeah, equity is really the name of the game, in it.
yeah. Could I
Um,
um could I ask you a few kind of questions, if you don't mind?
yeah,
Um, And obviously, just take your time. You don't have to. We've not really prepared you for this, but I've just got some questions that are kind of flying out a little bit now. I guess when you look at your business now, and if we think of compliance, because myself, you, and Ben, we've kind of joked around about triplicate forms and all that sort of thing. What does good compliance look like to you in practice now? Where you are now, what's good compliance in your business? Is it about speed, visibility, accuracy, client confidence, something else, all the above? What does it mean to you? Don't let me feed you, but what does it mean to you?
yeah. I mean, a lot of those things, and it also produces more business, and that's back to the investment as well in the company and the brand. And what I'm hoping, and it does happen, is some companies would use us as a preferred supplier because of our systems and processes that we're providing to them. And like I think I might have said when we spoke before, that I had this client that you know unfortunately, I've had this argument with a lot of my members of staff. The paperwork is the job. That's
Mm.
the game you're in, and it's only going to get more. That's the problem. It's not going to get any less, is it? So,
No.
I always say to my guys that work for me, if you don't like all this paperwork, if you work for anybody that's worth their salt at any size, reasonable size, they're going to have all this paperwork. If they're going to be doing it properly. So, my
By
clients,
paperwork, do you mean compliance around the job,
yeah.
everything around the job, health and safety, RAMs, all that sort of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
the RAMs, there's the PAT testing reports that are tagged
Yeah.
on to particular visits, and I got one particular client that we're doing solar maintenance for, and that's a bespoke form
Yeah.
which becomes instantly available their end through the customer portal, which means that they now it's up and running. Once you've paid for it and it's going, I mean, it's just there's 800 jobs there that we're doing, and there's a year's work for a van, and we don't have to. It services itself. The engineer fills out the form on site. They can't close the job without it, and the paperwork's instantly available to the client straight away, and they can't believe. I said it the other week. This is a client that's a taskmaster that actually give us a bit of credit and said, "Oh, there are some companies that are fully digital out there." And I was thinking, I said, "Yeah, what, like us? Yeah, you know." So he's like, "Yeah, don't get too ahead." He likes to keep me on my toes, which is great. But it, the customer retention that's involved in these streamlined systems, that people won't admit it, but if you make their job easy for them, that's ultimately what they want, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're the customer. If I make it easy for that guy, he'll think I'll just give it to Assured Electrical because I got no problems. So yeah, that
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, cool. All right. Let me switch back to Ben a little bit and bring Ben back into this. Ben, from a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Systems perspective. What Jamie's describing, is that what kind of looks good looks like for most businesses trying to balance that compliance and efficiency. You heard Jamie talk about RAMs and pat testing. Obviously, we've got, minor electrical works, all a whole host of certificates that Jamie's company will use. What for you, is, or what do you find, sorry, that good looks like for these businesses trying to balance that compliance and efficiency?
Yeah, I think Jamie's example is fantastic. It's absolutely about a balance. But what Jamie says about the paperwork being the job rings so true. What I think is really useful is about that though is that the paperwork shouldn't be difficult. It doesn't have to be difficult, and that's where automations come in, and you know uh, different functionalities that technology can help with these days,
Yeah.
because it ties it all together and makes that process efficient. Efficiency is still key. If you don't want to spend 10 times the amount of time to get a really accurate certificate or RAMs or form or whatever that you're issuing, if it means that actually you end up doing, you know, significantly less work, you've still got to balance that between the two. Um, but I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it's the processes that you put in place are what enable you to balance the efficiency there.
What I loved what Jamie said then was the customer that's self-serving. I mean, that's the dreamland, right? They just literally, like you said, he chucks a van at it for an entire year, and they just don't hassle him. Everything's on that portal, everything's downloadable, everything's even payable from there. So that to me, that rang a real bell. I guess if any of the viewers, Ben, are listening kind of to they're obviously listening to Jamie's perspective, and why would they listen to us software geeks when they've got somewhere like Jamie to listen to? Um, if someone's listening that wants to kind of reach the same point as Jamie, what's the one piece of advice you would give them, Ben, to start implementing what we would call kind of best practice digitally?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think what I would say the best advice I could probably give would be to actually start small. Find a part of your business or a team or a department that you can get really good results from. But if you start with just one team or one department, you can really fine tune that process. Come up with a really good system of best practice, and from there, scaling's much easier. If you've got proof of concept with maybe an installation team or something like that, it means that when they're up and running and you're happy with that process, there's a lot more confidence within the business to scale it out across, the other departments and the other teams. And that, because you've been there and you've done it, it's far easier to grow
Yeah.
it across the company.
Yeah, absolutely. We've always spoke, haven't we, about avoiding that big bang, doing it in bite-sized chunks, in milestones and small pieces, and feeding back and getting the data before you implement the next stage, not just going all in and trying to repair it as you go. I guess if we can kind of move more into talking about digital certifications, because we obviously, again, all of us know that there are businesses out there relying on kind of generic word forms, PDFs, all these kind of what we call single siloed areas, which they can often get lost, mixed up, contain errors, fail audits, that sort of thing. And we haven't even spoke about audits yet and how it all helps from them. So I'm sure we'll get onto that. But if we think about these, Jamie spoke about out of the box and purpose built digital certifications. Well, to us, those two things can be combined, because we have purpose built digital forms for the electrical industry, but Jamie's actually gone a step further as well, and built bespoke ones for his company with additional fields and questions and so on that he wants. These obviously help the lads and the ladies on the ground capture that kind of accurate data first time. We're linking evidence straight away to kind of assets and producing these lovely audit ready things automatically. I guess, Ben, again, another question to you. Why do you think that purpose built certs makes such a difference compared to just generic ones in the kind of like older style Word or PDF templates?
Yeah, I think what what's useful is knowing where that point of truth comes from. You've got you want to be confident that the form you're filling out meets the industry standards that you're aiming for. And where the bespoke element of that can come in is if someone like Jamie comes along, they're ambitious, they've got you know, a really good plan behind why they do what they do and why they do it, and they go the extra level, they go a step further than their competitors, for example. They can bespoke that design so that the form that the client receives really reflects the work that they that they've received as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's claim. It's probably a good point to bring Jamie back in as well, around this sort of question about these purpose-built digital forms. Jamie, have you seen when you introduce those forms, when you know the purpose-built ones for you? Let's focus on that. When you brought those in, did you see kind of any change in the way your engineers work on site? Did it reduce visits or, callbacks to go back and fill it out bloody properly?
Mhm.
And it obviously improved accuracy you spoke about, but has it helped with audits? Can you kind of talk us through audits? Because we, as this, these outsiders looking in, they terrify us when you guys start talking about audits. But how these purpose-built forms kind of change the way your engineers approach it and your attitude towards audits?
Yeah, so we have an end of job audit, which is great, but that's evolved over time. And I think just even though it's subject and on the subject, that you've got to look at the upgrade in the business model at times, and that's where these forms come in. Like, we identified that there's a series of questions and audits at the end of a job which actually helps us strengthen our business model, with additional work requests, and it looks so professional when that information is fed back via the digital form into our office, and then we can call the client direct and they think, wow, I mean, and not only that, that customer's already spent with us once. So we're capturing all that information on site, that customers still in the system, and we sell in another job and they want that job done, and you're making it so easy. So these custom built forms are great for, we ask the client if they could leave us a review, which monitors the performance of the company. Have they left a company sticker on the consumer unit? So that, I mean, where's the first place you're going to go if you have a power outage? Some people
Exactly.
ring us. Some people ring us and they don't. I mean, I know Joblogic because I see it on my screen every day, but there's probably lots of people that don't know about it. I mean, just
Mm.
because I got 10 vans out in the yard, we all work there, we know what it looks like. But just all of the tick lists for the compliance, the tick lists for the company standards that are done at the end of a job, the walking round of the client to make sure that they're happy. That's a process that's done via the form, so that
Mm.
you can't sign the job out without completion from the client because they're paying.
Oh,
So
nice.
there's lots of things that we've implemented. And also, if a visit's not been able to be completed, we can specifically know why and rebook that back in. It just looks so good then that our team in the office is more efficient because all this information is collected, and it's not costing extra labor charges in the office to collect. You know, I've really thought about this stuff. You would need a lot of we do promote a telephone call, but this stuff is brought in daily, and we can monitor what's needing to be done via what the engineers have said, and that job don't get lost in translation. So you haven't got a client as well that's thinking, what's happened here? That information through these custom forms is fed back through the specifics of my business into my team at the office, which also
Nice.
produces more revenue. It's a double whammy. If you
Yeah.
spend the money on finding out what your customers want and collect that information, end of job surveys, etc., um, digitally, then that's instantly available, and you don't even have to. It's not flabby. It's
Yeah.
streamlined. You
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. Ben, if you heard what Jamie said then, with those extra steps, obviously you and I and Jamie, we know what he's doing there, how he's capturing it, what he's asking for, and so on. I guess people listening would say, okay, digital tools, great, but these steps that this guy, this Jamie, is talking about, how do we make sure these don't slow our engineers down and actually save us time? And from your perspective, Ben, how do you how would you tell people listening, um, how they make sure they save time for the engineers and don't slow them down?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because some people are often nervous about adopting technology. Digital transformation can be daunting for a lot of people, but you want the tools to be as invisible as possible, almost, so that they're focused on the actual work and the job. Tying in with features like validation on the system mean that the back office staff can have live visibility on how much information is actually still to go on the cert, and the engineer can actually just focus on providing the service, providing the job whilst they're out there. And you can validate by exception on these forms and
Yeah,
stuff like that to make sure that you know you've captured what you need. You've got the confidence in the form before it gets issued to the client that you've followed all the steps. And I think what's really important about that is the ability to add in your own sort of above and beyond demands. Like Jamie was talking there about, the walk around at the end is really interesting because it shows, you know, their their goal there and their kind of focus is client based. They want the client to
yeah,
be satisfied with the report.
yeah, absolutely. And it also shows, like you said, then client satisfaction is key for Jamie. And putting that extra step in and walking around with a customer, I think is a great little touch. And if anyone's listening who obviously uses that kind of electronic form software, that's something that they should perhaps consider a little bit more. I'm sure Jamie will back me up here, but I would imagine it's massively reduced. Customers coming back saying, "Oh well, this wasn't done," or "Oh well, this was left in a mess." And again, Jamie's this classic example that we've been telling people since we launched mobile. So you're talking 10, 12 years ago, something like that. Take a picture before and take a picture when your engineer leaves. Just as for then, it was just a safety blanket. But now it's all built around compliance. Jamie, is that a fair comment that it's killed that kind of argument around the quality of the work, the way the actual site's been left? Does that kind of stop for you now because of your walk around?
Yeah, and not only that, these additional questions. I know I don't want people copying my model now. I'm joking, but um, it it um, it changes the mindset of the engineer because they're going to have a picture before and after, and my scalability, where I'm quite centralized, and we've got um, people out in the field. They feel that connection in with the office that like this is going to be looked at by somebody, and that you don't start running away with. It's a double whammy. You've got the customers okay, and the engineer it thinks, well, I mean, I wouldn't employ anyone that's no good, but they think, look, this is all monitored. It's you got that before and after image, and we also take an image of the consumer unit for with the
Yeah,
with the lid open, so that we can you know, if anything, because another thing is, you don't want a client saying that since you've gone, this has happened. Well, we've got images to say that, well, that's not what happened. I'm not saying it didn't, and we're always above board. We're not trying to get away with the customer, but you've got proof of what went on there.
yeah,
And that adds into compliance, doesn't it? Because
yeah,
you've got all the image of the job before and after, and of the consumer unit, so you've got a full paper trail of what happened on that particular job. And I've
yeah,
even used it myself just to have a look through a job and pull one for audit. And because there's certain things we want 100% compliance, like a sticker on a consumer unit I want 100% compliance from my team. So if I check some images and they're not on there, well, you're raising the standards of your staff, because that's going to generate a manual call to that engineer to say, look, we're just checking through some jobs. Can you just make sure, please, that you're doing the things that we're asking? And before you know it, they're doing it anyway because they realise that it's going to be checked and audited and X,
Yeah.
Y, Z.
You're just for me, you're doing exactly what we talk to our teams about. From the likes of you, Jamie, we talk about having good workflows in place. So from the moment the call comes in to the moment you complete it, you have every single step of that workflow mapped out. But what's intrinsically linked all the way through it is best practice. And it's best practice that when you leave there, if there's no sticker on the consumer unit, you put it in, you scan whatever it is you need to do, and you leave that site after the walk around, after it's signed off, spotless how you found it, and you come away. That's just best practice to me that you are. It's wrong to use the word enforcing, you're encouraging.
Yeah,
And like you said, I think they're going to pick it up. And before you know, like you said, I think I feel like I'm repeating everything you're bloody saying.
it's great.
But it's just going to become natural to them. That was the point I was getting to. It's just going to become second nature, isn't it? Obviously, for everyone that's watching, Jamie's battery was getting a little bit low in his phone, so he's moved into his van, which to me is even better setting because it just shows that the guy is still grafting as well as building this company and scaling it. I guess I'm going to just go back to Ben. And Ben, can you kind of talk us through how these tools that we're talking about, that we've just been talking about, reduce those errors? For example, no missing codes, no incorrect readings, and how it kind of impacts compliance.
Yeah, it's a really important point. I think there's probably, I guess, two parts to that for me. Validation of the readings and the results is really important. You want to make sure that what's been entered is accurate, it makes sense, and allows the customer, whoever it is that's issuing these reports, to be confident that they're not issuing them with the errors in there. There's ways in which you can control it so that they can only be issued once they've passed validation steps and stuff like that. So being really strict on validation helps with compliance massively because you've
Yeah,
got that confidence that you're not missing anything. The other thing I'd say it ties in nicely with is audit trails and audit logs, because you're never going to get away from engineers spelling someone's name wrong, or putting the address down and stuff. So you're always going to need to have the ability to edit that. It's not going to be Tipex anymore, but you want audit logs to sort of prove why that's changed. Otherwise you've got, Jamie might have someone saying, look, here's a copy of my certificate, and actually it looks different to the one you guys have got on your system. So if you've got a nice clean audit log that's got like a revision number against the serial number,
yeah,
that says, well, this is actually revision number 3, and looking at my log, so I can see why we had to make a change.
yeah,
It just
yeah. Jamie laughed then, like he perfectly understood about the Tipex.
Those were the days.
Those.
I mean,
Uh,
I mean,
Jamie, sorry to interrupt you, bud. I didn't, but we can reminisce about Tipex in a minute if you want.
no,
But
it's fine.
um, I know you mentioned that customer when you brought in that kind of digital system and experience for them, but thinking of your customer base as a whole now, can you kind of give us any sort of feedback or what sort of feedback you've had from clients since you moved to digital certs? Has it made judging by the sound of it, we obviously know it's made your compliance reporting a lot easier. But has it made those reports that your customer wants, or those sort of handover conversations, easier? What's been the general kind of feedback?
Well, yeah, it's done two things as well. Just quickly reverse a tiny bit is like I've been able to do things that are not in my business model as well,
Hmm.
because it's away from the core business, and those customers have come to me with customizable things that they want. So that's been good.
Okay.
And are you asking a question specifically about what we've used that compliance forms for on particular
More
sites? Or
more so, how's the reaction been with your customers to going digital? You know, your long-serving customers, and has it had those, you know, when you've done, let's say you've done an install, you've done a refit, whatever it might be, you know, you have that handover conversation after at the end. What's those been like since you brought digital, since you digitized?
Well, what's been really good as well is it stopped the complaints really, because I've worked out as well when you talk about that journey that there's two pieces of forms for a job. There's one prior to you starting because there's a conversation about what's going to happen, and then there's one when you finish. So it's actually changed the mindset of the customer to realize that you know, all this stuff is built with them in mind. You know, so there's questions that is it being done properly and X, Y, and Z. So the client base has like welcomed it, because obviously with Joblogic, when the forms are finished, there's the logbook and they can download them and see what the engineer has said as well about the job, any feedback, insurance stuff. You know, all of the clients are like, same subject but slightly off, is we are not a cheap service, and you have to show them the value up front. And if they can see the value in using you, then you can say why you're not a budget firm, you know.
Yeah.
So the clients accept that it's a premium service that's streamlined, and all the information is available via the forms and the notifications and the end of job report. The clients have just I mean, the only thing is you only hear when someone's unhappy, but considering the amount of work that we do, I would say because of the systems, the processes, the forms, the breakdown of each piece of the job, I mean, even though I want it perfect, I would imagine that it's very low, couple of percent of completed jobs that we get issues with, be just because of the systems and the processes that we've used.
Yeah.
And not only that, we've actually had a customer where, you know, they might not be happy with something, and when they see it, that they've signed for it, and they realize it's their mistake, you know, that
Yeah.
it was spelt out to them, they have accepted it, it is all there, and that's just human nature. But they then feel better that it's not just somebody saying, well, no, you agreed to this, and we're like, well, no, we've got all of that for them to see the trail as well.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really, yeah, it's exactly what I was looking for. And I guess before I bring Ben in there, Ben, Jamie was talking and he touched on something. I wanna get your take a little bit about adapting to systems and more so the adoption of the system by the customer. And obviously we know from our perspective, and Jamie knows from being at the coalface, that adoption of any software system, let alone JobLogic, is key to your business growing, scaling, and so on. And Ben, you've worked with teams at kind of at all levels. Um, do you believe that the challenge is the technology itself, or is it helping people adapt to it?
I'd say it's probably mostly helping the people rather than the
Mm.
technology generally. I mean, technology is never perfect, as much as you strive for it to be. But what helps with that conversation is a collaborative approach. I think as long as people like Jamie get the support they need as they go through that journey, it's really important. And I'd say that's why I said what I said earlier about starting small, starting with a process that you can control, enables you to then scale that adoption out.
Yeah, yeah, and if you think of where Jamie is now, um, and I'll think of my age rather than Jamie's. But if you think of who Jamie is employing now, right? I think we tentatively years ago we dubbed them like the Facebook generation. These are people that have grown up with smartphones in their hands, so they're not alien to them. They're not scared of them. So that adoption now, from everything I've seen from the mobile, that we keep calling it the coal face, you know, that sharp end, seems a lot smoother now, Ben. And I don't know what Jamie thinks about this, but even if you rewind 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was so much harder to convince people to adopt that kind of, get rid of those triplicate forms, get rid of them. I mean, my brother is a plumbing and heating engineer, and you know, he used to swear by his pads, but now he would say, well, you'd have to take my right arm to take Joblogic off me. Would you two agree? Is it been made easier, this adapting to software, because of the technology and the generations are growing up with?
Yeah, that certainly feels a lot less resistance previously. I mean, I think like you said, 5, 6 years ago, the majority of the digital transformations we're looking at, people that we're helping, it's from paper to digital, whereas that conversation often these days is actually from one digital system to another.
Yeah,
I
absolutely. It's
think
a great
I
point.
think that's changed massively.
I know what you mean, the generation. I mean, I have had a combination of both. Some younger gents that have said, "Oh, this iPad or whatever," but I think lockdown changed it, didn't it? Because like you could
Yeah,
see you could see a doctor on Zoom. Do you know what I mean? So we do a lot of our surveys remotely, and just rewinding slightly when we were talking about the webinar earlier, is I just have to say, even though I'm rolling all this stuff off, I've got this, I've got that. I started with hardly any forms, with hardly anything, and I've evolved and added it as I've gone on. Some people might listen to this and think, I can't think of 30 processes or 10 forms or this or smart this, but I just started with one thing and then just kept adding to it. And I think my teams accepted it even more. And I mean, the people in the office have said to me that the best thing about this business is its software, because if that's how we're going to beat the competition, we
yeah,
we have we have more powerful software than most of my competitors. I mean, my competitor is not one man in a van. So I mean, yeah, he might take some work from me, but he's not up against me in that way. So the acceptance of all this stuff from my team is realizing that, and from customers and from everybody accepts it, that that's the way forward, I think.
absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
I'll be honest with you, on our smaller work, we won't survey a job. It's all done via a WhatsApp video. We send
Oh
them a
wow.
series of things that we ask for. Because I've told my clients it'll be more expensive. If you want an engineer to visit every small job with not many variables, and you don't want to use this technology and this videos like we're doing today, it's going to be more expensive. I'd have to employ somebody just to go around when the technology's out there to not have to do that. You just
Yeah,
got to think about it. And it makes it, and not only that, I shouldn't say it, but you actually then get customers with the intent of purchasing from you, because you can give them a price. You haven't got the tire kickers, because you
yeah,
are cutting through that with the technology, and then you can deliver a price based on that, and it makes it more scalable. It all rolls into one, doesn't it? That sort
yeah,
of
yeah,
thing,
absolutely, absolutely. I
you
love
know.
that. I totally agree. If you've got someone, you know, showing you their distribution board with WhatsApp video, and then saying, okay, now take me to the, the cooker or whatever it might be, and show where
Yeah,
the issue is, and you say, okay, yeah, I think I know what that is, etc., etc. It's going to be roughly this, roughly that, and this will be your price. They're just going to think, well, if this is the start of the journey, imagine what these guys are going to be able to give me, after it's finished, during it. It just, you're right, it just sets you up for a fantastic start.
and
And yeah,
I sorry to interrupt. I just
no, it's
thought of
fine.
something as a caveat, just to quickly put in there. When you said about the people and the technology, I've had people that have rang us and said, I'm
Mm.
not doing that, right? Because you're going to get it. And I would say over half, maybe more than that, will ring us back because they don't get any joy with other contractors. And they said they'd be there at 5 o'clock. They got the one man van syndrome and they've got caught up on a job. So 9 out of 10 people, or 8 out of 10 people that won't use our technology will ring us back and go on, and how do I do this video? You know,
Talk me through it. How do I do
yeah,
this? Talk me through
yeah,
it.
and then they get on board with it, and then you get the millenniums that say, "Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. I'll do that after work, and I'll get the wife to do it." You know, you
Yeah.
see the dog in the background, and their kids are eating tea. And I says, don't worry about how fussy you are. Just chuck us the video, you know. But yeah, so yeah, as a caveat, the people that don't want to embrace the technology, find out why we're using it, because
Yeah.
they've got this slow process. I know visiting somebody in their home is so much better. And for the variables, audit their business, and for the variables that are really bespoke work, obviously there's a site
Yeah.
survey.
Yeah, of
But
course.
for the majority of things, you can get implementing technology. You can get, it won't get rid of everything. We know that, but it'll get rid of a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That sets me up nicely actually. This is kind of like the last sort of section I want to talk about now, because we've talked about, you know, your past and how you've built, and we've talked about Joblogic's past a little bit and technology's past and so on. So I think it's only right to talk about the future. So I'm just gonna park you for a minute, Jamie, and go to Ben, and I'll let you have a think, because I think you know what I'm gonna sort of come back to you with. Ben, we've talked about, and Jamie especially has talked about that beautiful sentence about rising compliance expectations, and how he said that it's just going to get more and more and more. Um, I guess if you can give us your thoughts on how technology is now helping businesses like Jamie's stay ahead, rather than just reacting to audits. You know, I know you mentioned the revisions before, but could you go, Ben, a little bit further on that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, ever since the Grenfell stuff, it's brought everything into the public domain significantly more in how important this stuff is, and how important it is to prove your compliance, make sure that you're behaving in the right way for the right reasons. I feel like the technology is going in a direction where compliance then becomes part of the design rather than, you know, by inspection. What you're doing on a day-to-day basis, the compliance side of that is built into all your processes straight away. So it's all, it's kind of already all there for you. It's all covered, so that when those audits come, you're ready for the audit without having to prep for it. You
Yeah,
know that if they're going to ask you, oh, what's you know, I need to see a copy of the cert from, you know, this job you did in May or whatever it is. It's a really simple process for you to find that information, because you know it's all there automatically, because you do it every single day in kind of the processes and tasks that you undertake.
yeah. Um, that's a great answer, and I guess if I can just sort of finish this side of things off with asking Jamie. Jamie, if you were advising a business today, and that might be your little mini retirement plan, mate, you might be able to become a business consultant or something. Um,
Maybe, hopefully.
um, if you're advising a business that's still mostly manual, mostly, where should they start to get the quickest wins with technology? What would you tell them to do? And please don't say buy Joblogic. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm
No,
just saying what would you, where would be the first things that you would, because you started small and you kept adding, like you said. So where would you start?
I mean, it is a catch-22, and I know you said don't say it, but it was my first purchase, Joblogic.
Yeah,
It
I
was.
know.
Because of the vision that I had, and obviously my vision's bigger than everyone in the company because I could see where it could go. But the quickest wins is, you know, I've watched my friend do it, but you know, Joblogic does take care of this. But you get you know, oh, I'll write that in the diary, and then there's this lost. I think Ben mentioned it earlier. This transferring of data all the time that you miss.
Yeah,
And the quick wins is to, you know, digitalize your diary, and digitalize some purchase order numbers, and have a trail of, like, you know, for instance, my friend, I've worked with other contractors
yeah,
um, in a great way. And I couldn't believe it. You know, there's no trail of purchase orders or nothing. He just literally walks into the wholesaler and pays the bill and doesn't check it. I mean, I'm not saying anyone's ripping him off, but you got, you know, the quick wins are to get everything in order with regards to business, your diary, the basics, the basic things that
Yeah.
you know, they even, Joblogic, a system like that, all your invoicing is in one place. I mean, he didn't even know what he was making, this guy I knew. He'd probably go to the accountant with a black. I'm like, wow, I need to know monthly. How can I move my business if I don't know what I'm doing? So there's a lot of people out there in business have just not. You got to start with the basics, like, where's your invoicing, where's your quotes in all this,
Yeah.
where's your diary kept, just the real basic stuff, instead of, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So yeah.
Can I recap a little bit, because this is really great stuff for anyone that's listening. This is exactly what I'm going back now to talking about us a little bit more, in the sense of how we help businesses scale, right? And we talk about this: win the work, do the work, build the work. And you've literally just triggered all three boxes, because you said, look, the basics are getting those quotes right, yeah, getting them out and getting them on time and blah blah blah. Well, that's winning it. And then you were talking about scheduling and being smarter with scheduling and making sure it's not in a diary, and that's the doing. And then finally you finish with saying, oh, obviously my invoicing is important as well, and there's your billing. So those three are the basics for any kind of business to start off with a good formula. And we look, this is about you, but Joblogic has helped you, which you've acknowledged numerous amounts of time, and we appreciate that. But we have differing sizes of Joblogic now, so we can go to someone like your friend who was at the time smaller and say, listen, you may not, in our mind, he doesn't have Jamie's vision. He just help me now. Well, that's fine, because we've
Yeah.
got this size that now fits you. And you don't have to have that vision that you're going to grow into everything like you did. You had the foresight and vision to do that. But yeah, that for me, you've ticked every box there. The basics of where to get started. And I guess I'm going to give the last question to Ben, and this is going to be more so about Jamie's business and what you've learned over this meeting, and obviously the previous meeting we had with Jamie. Ben, if you can sum it up, what's the real difference between businesses like Jamie's business that embrace these digital workflows and imply all this best practice policies throughout each stage, versus those that are still stuck on paper?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. I think what's really interesting about everything Jamie's spoken to us about today is kind of, it's why he's doing what he's doing. It's his ambition behind it, and the fact that he's setting extremely high standards, not just for himself but for his business, and for tying into, we want to set these high standards of best practice so that we can. He's talking about winning the work, and he does that by, being the best at what he does, but by doing that efficiently. And I think it's, the drive from Jamie and his ambition behind chasing that kind of level of excellence that he seems to
Yeah.
be, striving for, is what sets him apart.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think I'm going to have to go back to Jamie now. I did say I was going to finish with Ben Bud, but he set you up, I think, just for me to finish on another question. I'm going to get you to talk about your company a bit more. I guess, what does the future hold for you, Jamie? I know you're very kind of visionary in the way that you approach everything, and very single-minded in your belief of what you do. You know how heavy we're going, and we already are. We've already got a kind of march on our competitors with AI and what we've already built
Yeah.
inside it. What do you see the future holding for A, for your company as it is, and B, where we can help? I guess it's a two-part question.
Yeah. Well, you know, where we're going, and where you can help is, at different levels, you've got different challenges that you're going to face. One of the things I did like, when I was scaling was, and when you quickly say about software before I wrap up with what I'm doing, is with the invoicing through Joblogic, you can only attach it to a job, when most invoicing softwares, you can create an invoice for anything. So I knew that I needed systems that did what the industry would need. So you can assign that cost to that job. So you know when you say to your client that that's an invoice for that job. So where am I going? So would you want about the vision of where we're going with this new business sort of thing? So I suppose I had a fire in my belly that was like, I hit my 40s and I thought, right, I'm going to go for it. And I must have had a midlife crisis. I didn't buy a Porsche or anything. And
But sports car.
yeah, I didn't buy a sports car. I chucked all my money into Assured Electrical, and my wife was like, "You're crazy," you know. But it's starting to pay off. We started with a model of 5 vans with the help of software, Joblogic, all the systems and the hacks and everything. You know, we're up to 10 vans operating, and I'm a great believer. I mean, I'm nothing special. Anyone can do this if you just put your mind to it and you think about what you're doing. That you've got to dream big as well. But I know you've got the stuff that you can stay small. There's two types of people in the industry. I'm happy doing my work till 3 o'clock and going home, and they earn their money. And then
Yeah.
you get the other people that want to build a business that's going to earn you an income without you being in there. Because don't forget, you can't scale. I missed this out actually, that in the trades business, you got one body. And if you don't turn your trades business into a business, then you ain't going to want to be doing rewires and plumbing systems when you're, forgive me, you know, you're not going to be doing I can do a rewire in a week, but you can't do that when I'm in my 60s and 70s. So we got to be, I'm being clever now. So I'll be honest, I'm dreaming big. I want to be I don't know if anyone knows Pimlico that's set up in London. I don't know what they used. I know that's a different market. It was expensive. I want to be the biggest privately owned electrical services delivery company to the private sector. That's the vision. And we're marching on with it. I'll be honest with you, it's not as easy as I thought. But this is a thing with life, isn't it? If I knew what I was going to face, I probably wouldn't have done it. But it's too late now. I'm doing it. You know, I mean, it's so the vision is to keep on evolving week by week and implementing any things that will help us. And you know, if I look at over the 2.5 years I've been in business, 18 years, we've grown from one man in a van at £100,000 revenue to 1 point something million and onwards. So the profit's not quite there yet, as we spoke about earlier, but the equity in the team and the company and the revenue that it's producing will drop to the bottom line, I believe, if I just keep on scaling it. I got a model that works. I know it's scalable. And I'm just going to keep pushing on with Assured Electrical. And you'll probably all keep an eye out for me now.
That's it. You've alerted everyone now. But
yeah,
I appreciate that. I appreciate you being so candid with your figures and truthful and so on. Yeah, it's been a real insight into your growth as a business. And like we said at the start, it sometimes feels, you know, I know you aren't justifying this overwhelming profit being there at the moment. I know that you took that decision early that my journey is going to be growth. If I need to pivot in 10 years and I want to start seeing money coming in, I will, but it's going to be about growth. So yeah, okay, I think we're probably just about out of time now. So I'm just going to finish up by saying thanks for everyone for joining us today. If they're watching this, we've covered obviously a lot of ground from where the industry is now to how digital tools look like and certifications and so on. A huge thank you obviously to Jamie firstly for sharing his journey from that one van to a kind of a leading electrical business. Jamie, it really is, you know, it's inspiring to all of us from Joblogic to hear how your focus on professionalism and obviously thankfully for us, technology has shaped not only your company, but how your clients are seeing the trade in Cardiff. And that's what stuck with me from that first conversation. You've raised the bar, and I honestly believe you have done that. And of course, we wish you nothing but continued success on
Thank
your
you.
journey. And thanks to Ben as well. Bud, thank you very much for joining us, for your insight into obviously the systems and the digital workflows, and your little growth nuggets you're throwing in there. I think someone's taught you a little bit about that, which is quite nice to see. And obviously to everyone watching, I hope this has given you some ideas, and Jamie and Ben have kind of reassured you, if you're thinking of going down that route, that it's the right approach. Compliance can be a real driver of efficiency and growth, and not a burden. It should never be a burden. It should be in your workflows. Like Jamie said, best practice, not a checkbox exercise at the end. It should never be that, as long as they're part of them. And then, you'll see the benefits quite clearly, as Jamie is. So thanks again, guys, and we'll see you next time.